What's happening? Welcome to Throwin Stones. Alongside Ryan Griffin, I'm Matt Basson. If you don't know, you should know by now. We talking hoops, and more hoops, and not just our beloved Pistons. Before we get rolling, always got to remind you to like and subscribe wherever you can find us: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Full episodes on YouTube. Ryan, let's get it. Start with our Pistons. Bad news. Star player, not named Cade Cunningham. Jerami Grant being shut down for the season. Just like the title says at the bottom. Ryan, is this the last we have seen of Jerami Grant as a Detroit Piston?
I think it is. I hope it is. I'm not happy that it had to come this way, right where he's hurt, because you're never going to wish that on a guy. But I hope the Pistons move on. This will give the Pistons a few more opportunities to play some of the young guys. You know, Isaiah Livers is going to get a ton of minutes out of this. Marvin Bagley is going to play more at the power forward spot, I would imagine, out of this. And then Dwayne Casey already came out and said, you know, expect more shots for Saddiq Bey. So long term, I think it's a good thing for the Pistons. I do think somebody, whether it be the Trailblazers, who we talked about on our last show, or another mystery team no one's even thought of, is going to come in and swoop up Jerami Grant, you know, around the draft, during the draft, whatever the case may be. But I think we've seen Jerami Grant's last game as a Piston. You know, I wish him all the best. He was pretty good while he was here, put together a semi-all-star campaign last year, wanted to come here, you know, said he wanted to play for a black city, a black coach, a black GM. And, you know, he really embraced everything that Detroit was all about. So I have no ill will at all towards Jerami Grant if that is indeed the last time that we see him in the Pistons blue and red.
I mean, and the man, you know, kind of revitalized his career here. You know, 22 points per game last year, just over 19 points a game this year. A lot of injury troubles. And I think part of that, you know, was he was injured, and then it was getting towards, you know, the end of the trade deadline. And so it was like, all right, are they going to make something happen? Don't risk him getting hurt. Let's see if we can get him, you know, traded. It didn't happen. So then he came back and started playing, was playing real well. Then this calf injury happened. And, you know, there's no reason to push it. It's not like we're pushing for a playoff spot. You know, we're 20-55. So, you know, I get it. I appreciate what he brought here, because he brought it. When he played, he brought it. He didn't half-ass it. And, you know, he made the most of his time here, said all the right things, played the right way. And just like you, I wish him the absolute best. But this will be interesting to see now, because when we were doing Sports Carnage and we were talking about the hope of, you know, getting Cade Cunningham, and then we got Cade Cunningham, and we were talking about the youth of this team and how young this team really is. And Jerami Grant was a little bit of an outlier because he's a little bit older than the group we were talking about. We were talking about 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, and we got a ton of them on the Pistons. And Jerami Grant was, 26, 27, I think? So a little bit older than that. So now we get to see what this youth movement is going to look like for the rest of this year. All the guys you mentioned, obviously Cade, Killian, you know, we're going to see what these guys can bring to the table, you know, as a young group that's growing together. And we've seen in the second half of the season, you know, them play a lot better as a team, and we've seen that growth. And so now for the rest of the year, we're going to see it without Jerami Grant. And, you know, who knows, maybe because Grant's not out there, Cade's going to be putting up 30, 10, and 10 to finish off the year and force them to give that man the Rookie of the Year, because this man is still trailing Evan Mobley right now. Mobley is hurt and don't know how many games yet he's going to miss, but he's going to be out for a little bit at least. And Cade just motoring along, first among rookies in points, second in assists, fourth in rebounds, second in steals since the All-Star break. 21 points, 6.5 boards, 7 assists basically. And the big thing that I love that I saw about him is that while playing for the Pistons, he is a plus 5.9, almost a plus 6. When he's not playing, they're at a minus 11. That's how important Cade Cunningham is to the Detroit Pistons already.
Yeah, I mean, Cade has he was the most important Piston even before Jerami Grant went down, and he's been the most important rookie, you know, by far in the NBA this year. You know, he leads all rookies in usage. He leads them in like double teams per possession and everything else. And he's really tasked with more than any other rookie has been in the NBA, and he's handled it well, right? Since the All-Star break, he's put up just some crazy numbers. He's got some like really impressive totals as well. The per game numbers, obviously, but if you're just looking at totals over 1,000 points, 330 rebounds, just about 330 assists. He's the only guy ever with like those amount of totals through 59 games since LeBron, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Luka, Alvin Adams, and Oscar Robertson. Cade Cunningham has joined that list, which is already, impressive in and of itself. He's got 2 triple doubles this year. All other Pistons rookies combined, have 2 in the all-time great history of the Detroit Pistons. And I mean, he just figures to add to it, right? You have Jerami Grant out. Now Cade's going to have to do a lot more because even though he already had a high usage number, Jerami Grant was also getting a lot of usage. Jerami Grant was getting a lot of shots up. He was giving you, 19, basically 20 points a game, right? So everything that Jerami Grant had to do, some of it will fall on Sadiq Bey. I'm sure they'll let Livers get a couple more shots up a game, right, and kind of see what they have there. But all of setting up those guys as shots is going to fall on Cade Cunningham, and he's going to have to look for his own shot more and be a guy who can show now, can he put up 28 every night from here to the rest of the season? And that's what I'm interested to see. I think he can do it because, everything that he's done so far, he's passed every test that you can possibly, have had for him at that point. If you're giving him a pop quiz, he's aced them all.
Well, here's a pop quiz for you. 3 in the NBA in clutch points. Got Trey. He got Joker. And the third person ain't Kevin Durant. It's not LeBron James. It's not Kyrie Irving. It's not Embiid. It's not Harden. It's not Steph. It's Cade Cunningham. A rookie is third in clutch points behind Trae Young and Nikola Jokic. And look, there's things that about his game that you can look at and say, he's 61 out of 62 players in true shooting percentage for players who have taken at least 800 shots this year. So he is second worst. He's a rookie on a bad team. And you put up what he's doing against the other 2 big names that we've heard all year in Rookie of the Year, in Scotty Barnes and in Evan Mobley. Well, they both have all-star teammates, literally multiple all-stars, and Scotty Barnes is on a team of guys that won the championship. He's got championship caliber teammates as well as all-stars. And Evan Mobley's got a couple all-stars on the team and champions as well. Cade's got neither. Cade's got young cats just like him who are scrapping and clawing and trying to find their way in this league. And he's putting up numbers that are equal with the MVP and one of the hot young stars in the game in Trae Young. So, it's amazing what he has done as a rookie. And I don't know how many different ways we can say it. I guess we're going to keep finding out, but it is just absolutely amazing what he has done in the NBA already with all the hype that we threw at him coming in. He has literally lived up to it and surpassed it.
Yeah, and then you look at the other guys, and both Mobley and Barnes are great players, so I don't want to turn this into like, oh, they suck. But those, Cade's teammates looked at him and really kind of have all season looked at him to be the guy in those clutch moments, which is why he's, third in the NBA in clutch scoring, where with Barnes, you have Fred VanVleet, or you have Pascal Siakam. You have guys like that to take the load off and who are going to be looked at as more of a leader on the team, and they should be, right? You just said it. These are guys who have championship pedigree. They've done things in the NBA before. And then with Evan Mobley, right? He had Jaren Allen. He had Darius Garland. I know he doesn't have those guys now, and now the Cavs are in like a free-for-all or a free slide because they lost, their 2 important players. So now you're starting to see the Cavs play like the Pistons, right? Where a lot of the Evan Mobley hype is because of the team success, where the Cavs were in the playoff race in the East, and they still are. But since Jared Allen went down, they've been a really bad team. right? So now you're starting to see what happens when it's kind of the Evan Mobley show, if you will, and he's just not having the same impact on the game that Cade Cunningham is. I would say Barnes doesn't, although I think Barnes is in a really good spot where he is really valuable to the Raptors. But is, more insulated because he has these other teammates who are able to feed him. And then when he's not doing so well, able to take over. And that's just not a luxury that, Cade Cunningham has. When he did have it, I guess it was Jerami Grant, but now Jeremy's done for the season. So you're going to see, both Mobley and Cade kind of have to finish off the season without their, other best players on their team, where I'd argue Jerami was, even 1B to Cade's 1A, and Mobley was, a little bit lower on that pecking order. But it's going to be interesting to see how those two guys finish the season out. I hope team success doesn't really come into it. I think Cade should be Rookie of the Year, but I think he could still make a really strong push these last, 7 games that we have left.
Yeah, team shouldn't come into it because the majority of the time, your Rookie of the Year was generally taken in the top 10, which meant unless it was some crazy trade that happened and you got lucky, a la the Lakers in 79 with Magic, you are on a bad team. And he's on a bad team. It's not stat padding when you are literally the guy on a bad team. Look, Evan Mobley's great. He's not the guy in Cleveland. I would still argue that Kevin Love is more the guy in Cleveland than Evan Mobley, even in his reduced role. Obviously, Jared Allen was the guy, and same thing with Scotty Barnes, exactly like you said in Toronto. He has the luxury of having good teammates to pick him up when he's not playing at his best. He's allowed to grow and have it not just hit you in the face. His mistakes would happen with Cade on a Pistons team that is literally one of the worst in basketball. So no, team success should not matter. How you play, what you've done, and the company that you are putting your name in with should matter. And the historic names that he has put his name in with go along with these stats he's putting up and how important he is to this team. All of that should matter most, and all of that should be the reason and should be enough reason that Cade should leapfrog to the top. We're going to find out. It doesn't matter either way to Cade, apparently. He believes that he is Rookie of the Year, but more important to him, at least as far as saying the right things, is winning championships, making all-stars, because that matters a heck of a lot more than Rookie of the Year. Just talk about Magic Johnson. He won Rookie of the Year. Larry Bird took it. Right. Didn't do a damn thing to Magic's career.
just throw on the buffs and truck on.
Yep. Speaking of the Lakers, these are not Magic's Lakers playing right now. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Ryan, would you believe that once upon a time, the Los Angeles Lakers and San Antonio Spurs met 7 out of 16 years in which these two teams won 10 combined NBA championships? In fact, their meeting in 1999, which the Spurs swept the Lakers, was the final games played at the Great Western Forum before the Lakers moved to Staples Center and christened it in with a brand new championship that very first year. These two teams owned the Western Conference for a very long time. That is not the case anymore. Lakers and Spurs fighting each other for that 10th and final play-in playoff spot as we speak.
Yeah, it's really a 180 of what we've seen even the last 20 years, right? 2 years ago, the Lakers won the championship and the Spurs won the championship like 5 years before that or something, 6 years, I think. But they've been the two dominant teams in the Western Conference and really the NBA my entire life. The Spurs had those 5 titles. The Lakers won 3, then they won 2, and then they won another one just a couple years ago. And it's teams that, you never thought, I guess, would fall off, or you kind of assumed once guys started to leave, but they always seem like they reloaded. Even when Tim Duncan was getting old, they brought in Kawhi Leonard. Boom, here's another title and another, finals MVP. So for the Lakers and the Spurs to now be battling it out in what during their reign, they wouldn't have even had the chance at the playoffs. right? The 10th and the 11th seed that they are right now, they wouldn't be in. It'd just be the top 8. So to have like this, almost like this participation little tournament to get into the playoffs is the best way I can describe it. Like, this would not have been the case when these two teams were really ruling the NBA. They have probably the 2 greatest coaches in basketball of all time who were going head to head in those rivalries with Greg Popovich and with Phil Jackson. Obviously, some of the greatest players, right? Kobe, even LeBron and Anthony Davis, again, 2 years ago, Kawhi, Tim Duncan, David Robinson. So if you are a little bit of an older NBA fan, I'm sure this is, this is something that hurts you to see these 2 kings finally have fallen. So, so far to just be battling it out to have a chance just to get into the playoffs. And it's something, again, if you would have told me this 10 years ago, I would have said, you're out your mind. These 2 organizations are just too good to do that.
Yeah. And it's completely different situations for them too. Like the Spurs have accepted their fate and went to youth. They got one guy that's 30. That'd be Dougie McBuckets, Doug McDermott. But other than that, everyone else is 28 or younger. They're led by a young cat in DeJounte Murray, and he's having a heck of a season so far.
So good.
So good.
It's so sweet.
Meanwhile, the Lakers go out and make these big splash signings. They bring in Melo, and they bring in Westbrook. They also bring in some young cats and a Kendrick Nunn and a Malik Monk. But those weren't the headline names. And the 3 stars of this team, LeBron, AD, Westbrook, were supposed to be the trio that leads them to the promised land. They played 20 games together this year. And in those 20 games, they're 11-9. There hasn't been time for growth through these 3 stars. Injuries have taken their toll. Anthony Davis man is brittle. Like, he is great when he is in. And he's healthy. He's fantastic. But damn it, if he can't stay on the floor. And LeBron having a bad luck now, with rolling an ankle. And Westbrook Westbrook's come on as of late offensively, but it's just not a mesh. It's not a mesh at all. And these 2 teams, both fighting for these last couple of playoff spots, they can get to both be in it at 9 and 10. That jump to 8's a little bit tougher because the Clippers have about a 4.5 game lead on the Lakers, a 5 game lead on the Spurs. But the 9th spot with the Pelicans is a half game over the Lakers, a full game over the Spurs. That is reachable. They both get in, but it's tough sledding, especially for LA. I mean, they've got to go at Dallas, at Utah, and then they're home against Denver, at Phoenix, at Golden State, and then finish the year at Denver. So pretty tough sledding for the Lakers. The Spurs, a little bit of an easier schedule, but they still got to take on Memphis. They got to take on Denver in Denver. They got to take on the Warriors. They got to take on the Mavs. But they got a couple games against Portland and a game against Minnesota. Not a walkover either. So they both got a tough sled at the end. And I don't know if either, I think one of them has to get in because behind them is the Trailblazers, who's 4 games back. So one of Lakers or Spurs are going to be in the playoffs, possibly both if the Pelicans basically lose out and they don't.
And look, it's not like it's getting any easier aside from the tough schedule. Anthony Davis doesn't seem like he's close to coming back anytime soon. LeBron James just today was ruled out in a game where you figure if the injury at least wasn't a little bit serious, he'd probably be playing to secure the Lakers spot, at least in the play-in tournament. You mentioned the Clippers who are sitting there as the 8th seed. Paul George is coming back, so they're going to be a better team. Zion is just now traveling with the Pelicans, so who knows? Maybe you need the Pelicans to lose one of those last 2 games or both of those last 2 games in order to make it in. But if he's back, that's that's a boost to New Orleans. That's going to make it harder for you to get in. So for these teams, it's no easy sledding. I wish they could play each other on the last game of the year. I wish it worked out like that. And like a winner gets into the play-in type of situation. Yeah, like a play-in for the play-in tournament. That would be super cool. Unfortunately, it didn't work out like that. But at this point, I figure you'd probably rather see the Lakers in only because, again, they have LeBron James. Hopefully they have Anthony Davis. And if they can make it in, those are probably guys you want to see in the playoffs. And certainly, the NBA wants to see them in the playoffs. So I think that might have, some factor in these last couple of games that these teams end up playing. But it's going to be a hard road for both, and I think whoever gets in will probably limp in. I don't know that either of these teams are going to go out and take it against those schedules and go 5-1 or 4-2. I think it's going to be, if you go 3-3, you're just hoping the other guy goes 1-5, and you're limping in to fight another day.
Yeah, I mean, even if the Lakers get 100% healthy, they haven't had time to work on any kind of cohesive, unit playing together. It's going to be like the start of the year all over again with the three guys learning to play each other, which is not conducive to great basketball. So even if they do get in, I mean, you've got, some of the ESPN talking heads, former NBA players saying, if they get in, they can beat Phoenix. I'm like, are we watching the same team? Like, they might beat them once. You're going to tell me they're going to take a series from a team that's playing as well as a team? Look, stars matter, but how you play as a team matters more. And Phoenix is playing like a well-oiled machine, and the Lakers certainly are not.
No, I think I'm in at least partly in their camp, though. I think if you get at this point, it doesn't seem like we're going to get a fully healthy Anthony Davis, because that's just not what happens. And if he comes back, I don't expect he's 100%. But if you give me 100% AD, 100% LeBron, and then like 100% Westbrook, then I can see it. But at this point, that just seems like more of a pipe dream than any type of reality. So if all those guys aren't clicking on all cylinders, the Suns, or if they end up getting the 2 seed, I think it's the Grizzlies right now, whoever it is should end up making pretty easy work of them. But again, you want to see LeBron James in the playoffs, because that's when, he turns it up. And again, one of the greatest players of all time. You see what he can at least do and try and go, 1-on-5. At least I want to see it.
So much fun to watch that man always play. Always so much fun to watch that man play 1-on-5 and just watch his 4 teammates stand around.
Well, when Austin Reeves is your second best player, you got no other option.
All right, well, they're not clicking. They're not gelling. We got 2 teams, actually 4 teams, but we're going to talk about 2 of them first, that are clicking and gelling at absolutely the right time, and it's for the first time in the Final Four. AJ and I talked about this a little bit on Straight Shooting, talked about how sick we are going to be of hearing about these 2 teams by Saturday when they finally face each other, because they're the only ones that are really being talked about. It's North Carolina and it's Duke. We're talking about 2 teams that have combined for 334 NCAA tournament games, 36 Final Fours before this year, now 38, and have never played each other. And that's all the big hoopla about this. And along with Coach K, final season, we thought we saw the final installment of Duke, North Carolina, where North Carolina walked into Cameron Indoor Stadium and rained all over Krzyzewski's parade, rained all over the 100 former players that came out to salute their head coach and be there for him. And North Carolina walked away laughing, thinking, well, we got him the last time. It ain't the last time anymore. We got one more on Saturday, Ryan.
Yeah, we got one more. We got the most important one. And we just talked about what the NBA would do to get LeBron James in the playoffs. This whole thing feels like it's been scripted from the very beginning for Duke and Carolina to meet in the Final Four and have it shape out this way. It's like really the equivalent of if Michigan and Ohio State met in the college football playoff, not just the Big Ten title, but if somehow they found their way, to face each other for a chance to go win a national title. It's honestly insane. We're going to talk about the other 2 teams in a minute, but this is like the bluest of Final Four that we've ever seen from just a standpoint of all 2 teams, with obviously these 2 teams right here being like the standard bearers of what college basketball has been for so long. The only shame is that it's not a Roy Williams coach team. Is
Hmm.
that it's Hubert Davis, right?
Mhm.
If there was one thing you could change about the story, it would be it's both Roy and K's last year. But
Right.
Roy went out just 1 year too early, and I'm super excited to see how this game plays out. I can't imagine there's more, hate going on from either side because after they beat Duke last time, North Carolina was all on Twitter, all their players talking about, oh, you hate to see it. What a
Mhm.
shame K had to end at the end
Mhm.
like this. And like you said, it might not be the end. Could karma come back, or are you guys going to beat them again? Because that's a game. Duke was up 10 with or however many points they were up with like 8 minutes left, and then
And
they
then just
fumbled and
got
choked the game
dumped on.
away. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is a team that, they dumped on North Carolina in Chapel Hill a month and a half earlier. Had no problems with the Tar Heels, beating them by 20 plus. And then to turn around and have that second half against them at home in what should have been Coach K's last game against his biggest rival. It looked real bad for Duke memories. And now you've got one more shot. The thing that blew my mind was, these two teams over the last 20 years, the number of national championships they had, the number of almost, just contending teams, 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, and the fact that they had never met before now. And then I saw the rules and I was like, oh, this actually kind of makes sense because there's all these rules in place for teams in the same conference. If they are a top 4 seed, they can't be in the same. And the earliest they could face each other was a Final Four. So when you think about how great both these teams have been for 20 plus years, it makes sense now when you hear that they couldn't have possibly been. It's not by chance. There are rules to bracketing, and yes, they create storylines. I didn't think this was going to be one of the storylines we saw. When we saw Michigan State and as the 7 and Duke's 2, like, okay, we're going to get Izzo and Krzyzewski one last time because it's the second most ever by 2 coaches in the NCAA tournament. It's 2 legendary coaches, 2 Hall of Fame coaches. Why not give them one more chance to battle it out when it's Coach K's last run? That made sense to me. I didn't see North Carolina steamrolling, Baylor before letting them back into it. And then continuing this run, and tough fought battle against UCLA. They really steamrolled the Peacocks of St. Peter's. It just happened to be that time. But both these teams gelling at the absolute right time. We had talked about, Duke growing up in the NCAA tournament. They grew up in those final few minutes against Michigan State, where we had a 5-point lead, and we weren't able to close the door on them. North Carolina was in the same situation. Duke shot outside shots, sailed for outside shots, didn't force the issue like they did against us. So we saw them grow and become better. We saw it against Texas Tech as well. And Arkansas was just outclassed. That was an easy matchup for Duke in the Elite Eight. So now we got it one more time. We've got the legendariest of basketball rivals for college. And it's not for all the marbles, but it's almost for all the marbles.
No, pretty close.
It's pretty damn close. And the reason it's not a problem with the marbles is because they put them on the same side of the bracket. The other side of the bracket, what I like to call the forgotten Final Four matchup, just might be the one that ends up winning the national championship. Because just because Duke or North Carolina wins does not mean they are crowned champion. Villanova and Kansas meeting for the 4th time in the NCAA tournament. The last 3 times they've met, Ryan, the winner has become the national champion.
Yeah, that's just stupid to say. And you have, Villanova. They both have 3 titles, but Kansas is typically viewed as a blue blood just because they've been consistently good for longer. But Villanova, 2 of their titles came in the last 6 years. They won in 16 and they won in 18.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the same coach that they won with, Mr. Jay Wright, who even with Coach K in the tournament, I would say is the best current college basketball coach playing. If I could have a choice tomorrow of Jay Wright or Coach Cade, like to coach Michigan State, I would pick Jay Wright. I just think he's the best coach in the sport right now. And then you have Kansas, Bill Self, who won a title 14 years ago now, but has always had Kansas as a 1 seed. They've dominated their conference, and they've typically done pretty well in the NCAA tournament. Haven't been able to get back to winning the national title, but it's not like their first round exits every year. They're no strangers to Final Fours, to Elite Eights. So this is a matchup that in probably any other year that Duke and Carolina isn't on the other side would be the marquee matchup, because these are teams that we've gotten so familiar with in at the end of March or that lone April game. It's really exciting to see these two teams play, because these are games that you typically maybe get in like the preseason, right? Not the preseason, but like before the conference season starts, or if you saw Kansas Villanova, you're like, oh, that's a Super Tuesday matchup that I'm definitely tuning in for. That's one of these non-conference powerhouse games. And now you get that with so much more at stake when we know way more about both of these teams. And four teams that I bet are probably feeling a little disrespected. Kansas isn't the favorite to win it all. Duke is right now, if you look at like the live odds, but Kansas is still the lone 1 seed. Kansas wasn't the overall number 1 in this tournament. Gonzaga was, and I'm sure Kansas probably feels like they should have been, because they played a tougher road than Gonzaga did. And Villanova, they have the most recent championship pedigree out of any of these teams, and it seemed like they were maybe the most disrespected 2 seed coming into the tournament. If you just, I guess, looked at people's brackets and how far they had this Villanova team going. So I'm interested to see that is how much each of these teams carries that disrespect, and if they are able to carry it, all the way into not just this game, but the title game.
It's fun. Villanova just kind of swept under the radar all year this year. They had a rocky start. They didn't jump out the gates, 11-0 in the record book or anything like that. They had some tough games, they had some tough losses, and you just kind of forgot about them. And then they just kept the machine going, and Colin Gillespie got healthier and got better, and the team got better with them. And lo and behold, here they are, Final Four, 1 step away from going back to the national championship. I feel bad for Nova, especially for Justin Moore. I mean, your second leading scorer tears his Achilles at the end of your Elite Eight game, and it's just a brutal thing to see the best versus the best. You want to see the whole team being healthy and going at it. So now Villanova's got to find a way defensively to shut down a Kansas offense that's been clicking on all cylinders, and also be able to get their points while having their second leading scorer not be in the game whatsoever. I love that we're getting, again, adding to the Duke Krzyzewski narrative and all the different things we threw out there with Michigan State and now North Carolina. The other thing that they've talked about all year is who's going to be the next Coach K. Well, you got 2 guys on the other side of the bracket that have started a pretty good resume for themselves in their time in college basketball. And I think more so Jay Wright than Bill Self, because he's younger and he already has more championships. But if Jay Wright wins, if Coach K wins, you have that possibility of Krzyzewski versus his potential successor playing for it all.
Yeah, I mean, if Villanova wins again, then Jay Wright has 3, and he's probably got, I don't know how old the man is, 20 more years of coaching. That doesn't seem unreasonable, unless he's some 65-year-old who just looks real good. But he's got 15, 20 more years of coaching. He can stay at Villanova, but he'd be at the point he's probably at now where he can just point at any college job and say, hey, I want that. And
right.
All right, cool. Come on over.
Right.
So if Jay Wright does, he'll have a way more interesting case than Bill Self. I think even if Kansas wins again, Bill Self probably won't ever be able to push himself into that echelon where Krzyzewski is, where maybe like John Wooden and Bobby Knight are. But I do think legitimately Jay Wright has that opportunity, especially if he gets this one, to push forward with just some momentum, right? The NIL's coming, the transfer portal's being way more utilized now, and Villanova always seems like they can have that mix of really great seniors, and if they're able to add some impact guys from the portal or able to give you a couple NIL deals to some of these top recruits, now not only do you got the top talent, you got a very senior laden team, and obviously a great coach who knows what it takes to win in March, and that is of course a recipe for success. And in college basketball, you just have to win one every 6 years. That's what Cade did, 5-30, win one every 6 years, and you're the best of all time. So it's not like he has to go on these runs where if he wins this is his third title in the last 6 years. You just got to win one out of 6 now and then you're going to be golden.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit if he can win his second, now he starts, because Kansas is always getting good recruits. They're never going to have a real bad team. But if Jay Wright wins his third in 7 years, that's just nuts. And now you are absolutely being thrown into that hype with all the other great coaches that have coached this game and how many years he had left, exactly what you're saying, and chances to add championships to that. These storylines are crazy. They seem somewhat forced, but
Jay Wright is 60, by the way.
The biggest mystery to me, Ryan,
Bill Self is actually younger. Bill Self's 59.
Bill Self's younger?
Yep, he's 59. Jay Wright's 60.
Well, that's what tells you about living in Kansas versus living in Philadelphia.
I'll get that. Give me the skincare routine. Yeah, right. Oh my God.
So, Ryan, at the end of the day, we ended up with Duke, North Carolina, Villanova, and Kansas. How the hell did none of us pick this Final Four?
I know it seems so obvious on paper, right? Like you just it's like, oh, these 4 teams are usually pretty good, but Kansas was a 1 seed. They were in there a lot. Duke was a 2 seed, but I think still a lot of people had a bad taste in their mouth from them blowing that lead against North Carolina at the end of the year,
and Virginia Tech in the ACC championship game.
Yeah, and Carolina is an 8 seed. And they were going against the defending national champions in round 2. So I don't blame anybody for not having Carolina. But I bet there's more than a couple people in North Carolina who picked Duke and Carolina to meet in that Final Four. And they're winning their entire office bracket pool. Because if you even have one of these 4 teams, honestly, like even Kansas, I know the bracket pool
Kansas is the one. Yeah, I think that's the only one of my Final Four that I had right. I didn't have any. I think I had Arizona beating Kansas to go to the national championship. So that's the only one I had right. I had Gonzaga, and
I'm 0 for 4.
Don't even remember. I might have thrown Texas Tech in there as a 3-seeder, but we ended up with 4 freaking blue bloods.
I know, and we just talked about Villanova being disrespected, and I don't think anybody was really picking them to come out their region. So a lot of brackets messed up. A lot of people like me 0 for 4 on Final Fours. Some 1 for 4 like yourself. And if you're real lucky, maybe you got 2 for 4. Maybe you picked both Duke and Kansas, and you're just out here riding the highest of highs.
Because that would be the 2 you pick. If you pick 2 right in the Final Four, it's probably Duke and Kansas.
There's some Villanova fans who I bet are like,
exactly.
Still got it.
Outside of the fans of these teams, I'm talking about just us general casual fans. Because I threw one of mine in. Look, I couldn't do it with State. I wanted to, but I still, drank the Kool-Aid on Arizona and threw them in there. So, well, that worked out. So somehow we got the bluest of blue bloods for a Final Four that nobody picked, which is amazing all in its own right. But we should be set up for, I'm hoping, 2 great games. Duke and North Carolina, look, there's a chance Duke blows them out of the water. I think Duke is the better team, but Carolina has been playing so well since the NCAA tournament began. I mean, it's hard to see them getting their doors blown off, especially against a team that they know so well. And then with Villanova and Kansas, Villanova missing their second leading scorer, but that defense is no joke. And if they can keep Kansas in the 60s, I mean, they're absolutely going to be in that ball game.
Yeah, I expected Duke. I expect Duke to win pretty handily. I know Carolina's a hot team. I feel like Duke should have beat them pretty bad twice, and they know that. Plus, all the mess Carolina was talking after the last time they played. I think there's a little bit extra, extra meat on the bone for Duke to attack. So I kind of expect a blitz there. I hope I'm wrong. I'd rather see a good game. But if there's one of these games that's going to blow out, I would definitely pick Duke to put the beats on North Carolina more than I would really either way the other way. And I do think Villanova is going to win. I just think they have the coaching advantage. I think Kansas probably has the talent advantage, but Villanova just plays better, like as a team. To me, and I think they'll be able to frustrate a lot of what Kansas wants to do on offense. And like you, I think it'll probably be more of a grinded out game, and we're not going to get some 88-85 final. I think it'll be a more traditional kind of college basketball game where it's a struggle, and it's a real struggle the last 5 minutes of the game as these teams are trading, 2-point and 1-point leads.
Well, the big difference could be the fact that Villanova is going for the record as greatest free throw shooting team to go along with their great defense. So if it's crunch time and they're hitting their free throws, that could be all the difference in the world. We will find out this Saturday. Got 2 games where both teams know each other pretty well. So it should be a very interesting Final Four with 4 big names. Absolutely looking forward to it, even though none of our teams ended up being involved in this Final Four. Before we get off for the night, got to talk about our latest, greatest, favorite show, Winning Time on HBO Max. If you haven't tuned in yet, I highly recommend it. Great casting. Found even newer great casting added to this latest episode with How I Met Your Mother's fame, Jason Segel, or Sarah Marshall fame, or Knocked Up fame, or whatever you find him in that you love him in, is the great Paul Westhead, who is coming on as assistant head coach to Jack McKinney and the Los Angeles Lakers, who are finding a new way to play basketball, Ryan.
Yeah, this was the main focus of this episode, or at least the main takeaway, was it's really the start of Showtime, where McKinney's yelling at Norm Nixon to push the ball and pass the ball. And you see it. He's killing it in practice. But he's attacking the double teams, and he's driving it in to 3 people, and he's making the shots. And he's figuring, what's wrong? I'm making the bucket. And McKinney's saying, no, do it again. Now we're going to put Magic on the A team to teach you a lesson. They end up getting put on the same team, and that's when things really start to click. And that's the thing I was looking forward to the most, was the actual basketball part of it. So you can see him, describe how basketball, is like water, right? It should be a river. It should be free flowing, all of that. And that's what I wanted to see, from the series. All the dramatization I love too, but that was the part where I was really looking forward to it, to see how they described that and how they, told the story of the birth of that kind of basketball, which is obviously a lot of what we see now, which is faster pace, pushed up tempo, score the points and make the defense react to you. Don't play the game that they want to play. And to me, I loved that part of it, and seeing the early struggles with it. A lot of them, again, were probably dramatized. Magic's throwing bounce passes and guys are running into each other.
No, that's all real. Magic was hitting dudes in the back of the head because they wasn't looking. Magic's talked about that plenty. When he first got there, dudes were not ready for his passes.
All right, this is like Tom and Jerry, though.
Yeah, true.
But I mean, no, I can see part of that. And one thing I didn't know before this episode was the actor who plays Norm Nixon is Norm Nixon's son.
Yeah,
which I did not know beforehand.
And he's acted in other things before this, so this wasn't his first role.
Yeah, so I mean that kind of makes me believe that it was maybe a little less dramatized than I thought, or at least his character in specific is less cartoony than maybe I thought, or a more real life depiction of who Norm Nixon was. So I found that, and I thought it was interesting, and I thought that part of it was cool.
Yeah, again, this is a TV show, so not everything is 100% real. They try to keep things as close as possible to real for the important things. And I think the important thing that people need to take away from this episode especially for a younger basketball audience who care about history at all, is that Pat Riley is not the birth of Showtime. Jack McKinney is the birth of Showtime, and he gets no credit for it. You will find out why, most likely in the next episode, and I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but Jack McKinney is the forgotten architect of one of the greatest offenses of all time. You're talking about a team that went on to win 5 NBA championships in the 80s. Spoiler alert, if you didn't know that already. I'm sorry, you don't pay attention to basketball. I'm not trying to ruin winning time for anybody. But Yeah, the dramatization is hilarious. The cast of characters is great, and they keep adding new great cast each episode. I mean, we got Adrian Brody last episode as Pat Riley. Now we got Jason Segel as Paul Westhead. So, we haven't really met any of the big name stars of basketball that are going to be coming in as opponents. I'll be interested to see when those get involved. But I think the show's an absolute knockout. I've enjoyed all 4 episodes so far, and I'm kind of disappointed that there's only going to be 10 episodes, and I'm hoping that there's going to be multiple seasons of this 10-episode show.
Yeah, I mean, I hope, then you could bring in, like, the Kobe and Shaq Lakers, or even just do this with other teams. I mean, then you might have to focus a little more on the basketball and, like, not on the circus if you did it on, like the Bad Boy Pistons or something. But you could do it on the 90s Bulls. You might be able to do it on the Celtics. When they brought Bill Walton in, I'm sure that off the court, that off the court stories are probably pretty legendary. I don't know. I haven't really looked into it, but I would like to see more. It doesn't even have to be basketball. You can do the Miami Hurricanes, and I'll eat up every minute of it because just kind of seeing this fictitious lifestyle, or what most people would think is fictitious, but is probably pretty close to how these guys were actually living. That is always at least fun for me to see, and it's just cool, at least to me, to see the different actors that they get to play these guys and their spins on a Magic Johnson. I'm sure we'll see Michael Jordan at some point. Even Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who's just as surly as can be.
Mm-hmm.
And to see some of these guys play like their real life counterparts, that is something that has always been, like a bonus to me, playing a real life guy, because then you can go, not that you can't Wikipedia that guy, but then you can go Wikipedia the guy and see he's alive and kind of match the stories of what happens in the show and then what happened in real life.
Yeah, and just being sports fans in general, we always like shows that involve people that we know and people that we watched. So they've hit the nail on the head with this one. If you haven't watched it yet, it's on HBO Max whenever you want. It comes out on Sundays. If you just have HBO, highly recommend it. We got to get out of here. Before we do, don't forget, like, subscribe, wherever you can find us. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, full episodes on YouTube. Ryan, I'm Matt. We're Throwin Stones. We'll see you guys again real soon. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, buddy. Go Pistons.